Yes, people. What are you guys saying? Welcome back to another live. Today we're doing the aftermath of DNA Hardcore from Friday. So, for those of you who don't know, on Friday I had a booking in Leicester. It was my first ever booking as a DJ. Now, obviously, I've done bookings in the past as an MC, but I was booked at this one to DJ, and it was a pretty big event for me because there was a Scott Brown headline in it, and it was just something a little bit big for me, travelling down to Leicester to do a booking. And it was a really amazing experience. So this is kind of like today's stream is kind of just me sort of. I guess I'm gonna ramble about it and just sort of speak about sort of like the experience of it and stuff like that. Which this really reminds me of when I used to do my other YouTube channel. I did a series on there called Clubbing Year, where I'd go to an event at a nightclub and I'd kind of like almost review it. So like I'd explain, like I'd make a video saying where I'm going, and then I'd like take footage sort of at the event itself, and then I'd kind of do like a roundup video as to what I thought to the event. So this is kind of in some way similar, but it's kind of not, if that makes sense. It's similar, but it's also different in its own way to that series, because this time it's kind of more like me just explaining about the gig because I'm actually playing there itself. But it works, I guess, in a similar process or similar routine. You know, I make a video about the gig, I take footage at the gig, and then I round up the gig. So it is very similar. But yeah, so DNA Hardcore was an absolutely amazing event, to be honest with you. And I'm so privileged that I got the opportunity to play there. I honestly really am. I'm so pleased that I was given that chance to play at DNA itself, because it was such a do you know what I mean? It's just one of them like really good experiences for me as a DJ. You know, you get your first ever booking, and it was just absolutely fantastic, and I was just buzzed. I was just so buzzed. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it's just absolutely fantastic. So about the gig itself, then, you know, the gig in general, the main shiz. So it was at a nightclub called Boxed in Leicester. So it was in Leicester. The nightclub was called Boxed, and it was a relatively smallish nightclub. To be fair, it was. I want to kind of compare it to. It was kind of a bit like where Stomping is held in Hull. It was a similar nightclub, but I think it might have just been a tiny little bit smaller. I think it would maybe possibly hold about maybe 150 to 200 people. I don't want to say, you know, any figures exactly, because I'm not totally sure myself, but it wasn't like a massive nightclub, but it was a nice nightclub. It was a nice sort of warm, welcoming nightclub, if that makes sense. Now, sometimes you can have an absolutely massive venue, you know, you can have massive production stage, and you can have all this, that, and the other, and you can just have the shittest time ever. Whereas you can have a smallish nightclub with a nice sound system, you know, the place isn't heaving, but everyone's just having an absolutely amazing time. And sometimes that's what it's all about. You know, you don't always need to have a crowd of people where you can't walk and you can't move and people are knocking your drinks over. You know, and I always, in some sense, I prefer a place that gets fairly busy, but not a place that gets rammed. I hate nightclubs that get rammed, and I know it kind of sounds a bit daft when, like, from a promoter's point of view, you want to ram the club. But sometimes when it's like really warm inside a nightclub, you've got a sound system going. You can sort of smell and feel everybody's sweat, and everyone's barging into you. It can be a little bit of a overwhelming, situation, and sometimes it leads you to more wanting to go and stand outside. So, I really liked the nightclub where we played on Friday, because it wasn't too big, wasn't too small. It had a nice amount of people in it, and the night was enjoyable, which was absolutely wicked. So I got there about 8:30. The nightclub hadn't opened, but there was a guy in there who was just kind of like setting the decks up and stuff. So I gave a knock on the door. I said, "Look, I'm the first DJ on of the night," because I was. So obviously he let me come in and stuff like that. So I get all sort of like unpacked and ready, and I realise probably one of the most daftest and stupidest things ever that I could have done in the history of going to a gig, and I forgot. If I can show you, I forgot my big jack. So obviously my jack's in the mixer at home, so I'm getting packed and prepared, and I just go like that, put the headphones in the bag, and leave this plugged into the mixer and completely forget about it. And then I get to the nightclub itself, and I haven't got my jack. So literally what I do, believe it or not, is I actually put the little jack in the connection for where the big jack would go in the mixer. So you could just slightly hear something, because they are in some sense the same connections, they're just smaller. So like this is smaller, so it actually doesn't fit. Like it's too small, it doesn't fit. So like it still picks up like a slight sound, and it's a really like almost like a reverb sound, like a really slight sort of a little sound, but it was actually enough to be able to beat match. So for some reason, I actually willed it through and managed it and still smashed the set. My only downside is I just sort of wish I had the jack, because obviously you need a jack, but it was almost like I couldn't get into the actual gig. Do you know what I mean? Like I couldn't get into the gig itself when I was playing, because I was more like, I don't know, I was more trying to concentrate, because it was harder to find the beat. So I wasn't so I wasn't as such, do you know what I mean? I wasn't like jumping around. Do you know what I mean? And I wasn't, in some sense, I wasn't trying to like, I was trying to like, it's hard to explain. I was just being more like concentrating, like more serious, rather than like sort of like sitting back. I mean, I still bounced around a lot, but I just would have liked to have been a little bit more, a bit more up, sort of like better, and a bit more like, so I could have been more like on the effects on the mixer and pulling the faders down and up a bit more, and just having a bit more of a better time of it, rather than having to like spend most of the track trying to find the beat just so I can get that perfect mix when I'm mixing in. But nevertheless, it was still an absolutely fantastic feeling, and I dropped some amazing tunes as well, which was just amazing. Some of the tunes I dropped on Friday night, there was just heaven. It was a good set, so it was kind of like I did some new stuff and I did some old stuff, and the new stuff is banging. So I don't know if any of you guys know, but there's an Australian hardcore label called 170, and the label itself is just an amazing label, and they bring so many new bangers out, that there's actually some really good decent tunes on there, and literally I dropped some of them. I dropped a couple of 170 tracks, because why not? It's just that, that vibe that you need. A couple of 170 tunes. So literally, in all fairness, like, I sort of did old sort of versus new. Now I got to the club, like I say, I was in by about 20 to 9. So by about 9:45, I was like starting with the music before like the club had even opened. So I was a bit like, right, what do I play? Because obviously, like I had tracks in my head that I wanted to play like once the club had opened and like a bit later on in my set. So maybe like round the 9:30, 9:45 mark when there's going to be people have arrived. So I was kind of like going through the playlist to play some stuff that I think if I play it now, people aren't really going to miss out as such. So I just dropped a few like older stuff that isn't too bad. And then literally, just as the club got a little bit more busier, I started dropping some of the main stuff that I was aiming to drop. So it worked out well in that sense. Dropped a couple of exclusives as well, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. And, I dropped the Darren Styles Come Running tune. I dropped Critical. I was going to drop Wifey, but time just seemed to like slip. Time just seemed to disappear. And that, when you're in a club and you're on the decks, because you're having such a high time of it up there and such a buzz up there. Like, I'm stood there and I'm thinking, I'm actually on stage. I'm in a nightclub and I'm performing to a crowd and I'm DJing. And I can't believe I got that opportunity to do it. So, the hour just completely flies by, and the next thing you know, you're already like 45 minutes in. You've still got tunes that you want to drop, and sometimes it just comes to a point where sometimes you've just got to let a tune go and say, look, I ain't got time to drop this. And sometimes you're gutted because you want to drop it as well, but because there's so many stuff you want to drop, and an hour when you're in a club, like, it really isn't long. So sometimes you've just got to let tunes slip and just kind of like, you know, sort of say, look, this one, I'm going to have to leave this one out. And that's what I had to do with one of my own tunes called Wifey. I was going to drop it, and time just went on, and there was a few tunes that I never actually got to drop that I was actually intending to drop. So I was a little bit gutted, but I still did a banging set, and it was literally fantastic to do, to play the set. So obviously, I was supposed to go back to back with a guy called DJ Chewy. Now, he actually never arrived until after the set. He was actually late. And if I'm going to be honest, he was very drunk. You can tell he'd been on it. He'd been having a proper good sort of pre-party session. I think his girlfriend had taken forever at the makeup mirror. And he just actually ended up arriving late. I'd actually already done the set, and I'd already smashed it, and it was on with the next DJ, so he actually didn't end up playing, which is a little bit of a shame, really, that he didn't get to play. But then again, it was kind of, he got absolutely wrecked. He was late arriving. If he's booked for a gig and you've got to be there at 9, I'm not being funny. Like, sometimes get your girlfriend into touch. Like, we have to be there for 9. So like, she should have been getting ready earlier. If that was the case, she should have been got ready maybe an hour earlier. So then they could have set off. And also, if you're coming from somewhere and it's going to be a couple of hours driving, you always kind of set off a bit earlier just in case of traffic, or you never know on the motorway if you're going to run into an accident and they've shut lanes off, or there's any almost diversions because half of the motorway is cut off, or do you know what I mean? Like you never know, so you've got to kind of always be prepared. We set off about 5:30. Obviously the things at 9, we set off at 5:30. We picked someone up along the way. We ate food. We took a steadyish drive to the venue, and we got there for 8:30. But because we set off at 5:30 rather than 6:30, do you know what I mean? If we'd have set off at 6:30, we'd have got there at 9:30. Do you know what I mean? By the time we've eaten and stuff. So, 9:30 would have been too late. It would have been halfway through the first set. First DJ wouldn't have turned up. The night would have gone to pot, especially if Chewy hadn't have turned up. and then I hadn't turned up as well, it would have been just an absolute awful night. Do you know what I mean? So luckily I was there, luckily. But I still smashed the set. It was still enjoyable. And then after the set, I actually ended up MCing on the night as well, which was good. But people who was MCing, they knew I MC'd anyway. So MC Foxy, for example, he had no issue in passing me the mic and letting me have a little bit of a spray, which the crowd absolutely loved it. They were buzzed that I was actually rocking the mic as well as mixing, because some people there didn't know me. I'm just an up and comer on the flyer, so they're thinking, he's just a DJ, then he jumps on the mic and he rocks the bars, and then they're like, whoa, he can spit bars as well. And then before you know it, it's like a man of many talents, if you like. So I blazed up the mic as well, which was absolutely wicked. And we ended up staying right to the end of the night. We was originally going to leave a little bit earlier, but I think we just was having such a good time that we just kind of sort of like just lost track of time. And then before you know it, it came to the end of the night. I'd had a couple of drinks, but I wouldn't say I was wrecked. I'd had about 4 beers. I'd had about four Jaeger bombs, I think it was. That was about it. So literally, like, wasn't that bad. It was enjoyable. The night still. So we stayed right till the end. I got a couple of bookings out of it as well. I just got so bombarded with people telling me different things on the night that I got a little bit confused. But I know on the 4th of September and the 25th of October, I actually have a booking. So on them days, I know that I'm actually booked for something. So I'm quite sort of like buzzed about that, if that makes sense. I'm quite excited, and I've actually been booked for it. So I got 2 bookings that came out of it. And what was overwhelming as well is I actually had some people that came on the night especially to see me. I was like so buzzed. Like I was just literally so buzzed. So to start things off, I was stood outside. I'd just come out for a bit of air. My friend who drove me is a smoker, so he was outside having a smoke. So I just come out for the air. And a guy taps me on the shoulder, and he's a guy who follows me on Instagram. So he's come especially to this night to see me. He knew I was here, and not as such just to see me play, but because he actually missed my set. But like the fact that he just knew I was there and he just wanted to come and see me, meet me, shake my hand. He bought me a drink. So I was just absolutely buzzed. I was over the moon that he'd come all the way to see me. And then there was some girls that were sat at a table, and they'd also come to see me as well. And they were asking some stuff about the songs I do and the songs I've been making. So it was buzz. It was a buzz that like people actually came to see me. I was quite buzzed about it, to be honest. It was a little bit of a buzz. So I was very like, yeah, this is wicked. Like there's people that have actually come out of all the people on the lineup to see me. I mean, they probably thought, yeah, Scott Brown, we want to see him as well. But the fact that they actually recognised me was just good. It was amazing. So I was pleased. Do you know what I mean? I was pleased as far as that goes. To do it really. It was an absolute buzz. So I was, like I say, I was very excited that they actually came to see me. Just bear with me. So yeah, like obviously they'd come to see me. So that was a buzz in itself. So all in all, apart from me not bringing a headphone jack, it was a very successful night. Now originally, I was gonna film a whole gig log. I was gonna gig log the whole thing, and I started gig logging, and I started quite well. So I did a little intro. My friend picked me up, took a little video clip, took another one when we'd stopped off for fuel and stuff. And then literally we arrived there to pick our friend up, and I was going to film again. We was kind of hungry for food, and literally to cut the story short, the takeaway didn't take a card payment. There was a little shop just a couple of doors up, so I thought, oh yeah, they might have a little ATM inside. So they didn't have an ATM, so I asked them if they did cash back. I thought I'll get myself a little drink, I can have it with the food, and I'll have some cash back. They didn't do cash back, so I come out like, all right, they don't take a card, they don't have a cash machine and stuff in there. Luckily, a woman was walking by and said there's a Tesco literally just up the road, like a little Tesco Express. It's just like literally round the corner, like a little bend. So I walk up and there's a Tesco anyway, so I draw the cash out and we get food and stuff, and we're just hungry, and then we're kind of like looking how long it's going to take to get to the venue, and we just kind of lost a bit of touch, and I just forgot about the filming, and then by the time I'd sort of remembered, it was just kind of so next time I'm going to try and gig log a little bit better, but anyway, there you go. So as far as the event goes, I would most certainly rate it a 10 out of 10. I can't give it no less. It was a banging night. It was a lovely little venue. The music was banging all night. I played a banging set, which was a bonus. A few little minors went wrong, but that was, the jack was due to my fault, so I can't blame the venue for it. So I was just buzzed in general. So obviously, I'll let you know about my next booking. Obviously, don't forget it is Stomp for Jordan on the 10th of September as well. That's another booking I've got. I've also got one on the 8th of October as well, which is a birthday party. So I'm looking forward. We've got things happening. So make sure you do me one favour and keep your eyes peeled. Alright, people. Take it easy, yeah. Peace out. Right.